Well, yes, a very wet Friday. It looks as if it's raining across the country. The south seems to be having its hardest share of rain, especially around this period. But anyway, on a lovely wet morning, we'll have 5 papers for review today. And we'll have the Punch, the Vanguard, These Day, Nation, and the Guardian. And you always know I love starting with the Punch. And the Punch newspaper, many uncertainty, but anyway, a major one seems to be right there. Emergency rule, uncertainty in Rivers as Fubara delays return. And and everybody was cheering to see if they'll see his face at the government house, but that did not happen yesterday. Governor in Abuja may resume today. That's according to his aide. Assembly members resume Wike denies plot to impose appointees on governor. Well, anyway, you do know the State House of Assembly told Mr. Governor to send the list of commissioner nominees just yesterday. But anyway, I'll tell you to read more of that story on page 2. Manufacturer, let's see if we take some other leading story at the topmost, if we have any. Okay, yes, we do. Manufacturing import bill widens to 14 trillion naira trade deficit. And you can really get more of that story on page 9 of the Punch. And well, it looks as if we have more of an advertorial, and it's all about Osun PDP asks federal government court CJ to probe suspicious letter on Osun local government funds case. And like I said, we really want to talk about such issues, knowing we don't want to sound prejudiced, and it's already in the court of law. But it looks as if the Osun state government and the PDP seems to be addressing that issue of the local government funds. But I'll just implore you to get more of that story on page 2, and you'll be reading yourself all of that. But anyway, that's the much you can take from the Punch.
Yeah, let's see what the Nation has for us this morning. The lead story here says, why Fubara delayed return? Wow, that's on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. Let's see what we have at the top mass. Tinubu to meet Aisha Buhari during Kaduna visit. That's on page 41. UBA post a 335 billion naira profit. 1.6 trillion naira gross earnings in the first quarter. That's on page 8 of the paper. Let's see what we still have at the top mass. Bank of Industry granted adaptation funds accreditation, and the rider says bank to finance climate issues. That's on page 3 of the paper. Nigerian US seal healthcare partnership, and the rider says Fate hails agreement. Well, that's on page 3 of the paper. Okay, the picture of the day is that of a welcome note to the president in regards to his visit to Kaduna for the renovation and commissioning of the mosques. Well, that's all we're taking this morning on The Nation. Let's see what this day has for us. The major story here reads, Governor Umba Enugu will use coal to generate 1,000 megawatts of electricity, and the rider says vows not to treat mineral resource as a stranded asset. Discloses crime rate in Enugu reduced by over 80%. Says Enugu Air to take delivery of 6 planes before year end. NBCC president insists Enugu on the move. Witnessing infrastructure expansion, British Deputy High Commissioner, UK accounts for 65% of Nigerians' FDI. Well, you can read more of that story on page 9 of this day newspaper. Zenith Bank's gross earnings hit 2.5 trillion naira in the first half of 2025, declares 1.25 naira interim dividends. Well, you can read more of that story on page 9 of the paper. Right at the top mass, Osun PDP asks a federal high court chief justice to probe suspicious letters in local government funds case, and the rider says one of the letters may have been backdated. Well, you can read more of that story on page 9 of the paper. Right at the side, okay, right at the bottom mass, that's also the picture of the day. Come and invest in Enugu. We are open for business. Who is saying this? This is coming from Governor Peter Umba while he's trying to promote Enugu as an investment destination during the NBCC's Meet the Governor series yesterday in Lagos. Well, that's all we're taking this morning on this day. Let's see what the Guardian has for us. The major story reads, exhausted doctors, long wait times, test public hospitals' care capacity. That's on page 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's see what we have at the top mass. Investors avoid places where politicians control judiciary, says Jonathan. Well, that's on page 3 of the paper. Bank of Industry secures adaptation funds mandates to drive Nigerians' climate action. That's on page 3. NAS withdraws contract circulars as a 23.9 trillion naira capital budget rolls into 2026. Well, that's on page 28 of the paper. Right at the side mass, group raises alarm over massive data breach in Nigeria. That's on page 7. Federal government unveils innovative loan scheme for retirees. Well, that's on page 29 of the paper. At the bottom mass, suspends the solution as Fubara fails to show up after emergency rule ends. Well, that's on page 6 of the paper. UBA delivers 335 billion naira PAT, 1.6 trillion naira gross earnings. Well, that business story is on page 19 of the paper. Osun PDP wants suspicious letters on local government funds case probed. That's on page 6 of the paper. Well, the picture of the day is that of the lead story that says exhausted doctors, long wait times, test public hospitals care capacity. Well, that's all we're taking this morning on The Guardian. Up next is The Vanguard.
Yes, The Vanguard will be the next paper for us to truly look at. So we'll try to conclude on Dailies this lovely Friday morning. And on The Vanguard this morning, the leading story reads, Assembly resumes a sitting as Fubara fails to show up. And we're talking about the issue of River State. The House urges Fubara to forward Commissioner's list appropriation bill, asks Governor to probe IBA's expenditure. There's also one making the rounds, and a whole lot. A massive crowd leave in disappointment after waiting for 12 hours. I've spoken to Fubara. He assured me he will resume. I'm not the one saying that, but Yuson Wike seems to be giving us that lead. IBA's quit needs support for Fubara, says Tinubu mandate achieved, cautions against crippling state again. And Tinubu playing God in rivers. I did not say so, but ADC seemed to be screaming out that loud. I think it will be others speak. But I'll tell you, rather than talk, read more of it on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see if we take some other leading stories just at the topmost side of the Vanguard. A lot seems to be there. Government ends passport production at multiple centers after 62 years. Woo! There's a screamer on page 8. UBA delivers 355 billion BAT, that's profit after tax, as gross earning up by 17% to 1.608 trillion naira. Well, anyway, don't thrill yourself on that alone. Just read more of that copy, or rather, read more of that story on page 19. Plateau targets a Middle East halal market to boost economy, says Mufwang, as NGE pays courtesy visit to governor. And we're talking about the Nigerian Governors Forum. Flood alert, federal government raises alarm as River Niger and Benue reach peak level. Wow. You can get more of that story on page 9. Marketers want us to pump, or rather increase pump price by 75 naira. And Dangote is saying that, but I really love to get Mercy's view as it concerns that, whether she has gone to the pump anytime soon. But anyway, just get more of that story on page 19. Let's see if we take some other major stories, the side mass. Osun local government crisis, probe judiciary irregularities, PDP tells CJ. But I will tell you to read more of that story on page 10. Awujele, stool Fesugbawa, ruling house in leadership face-off, but face more of the issues on page 10. But the picture of the day seems to be multiple, but I'll take that one of Enugu open for business. And you can see the smiling governor, Mba, as he greatly tried to increase the internally generated revenue of Enugu State, with more foreign businesses making their come right there in Enugu State. But anyway, that's the much we can take from the dailies. And well, you do know, we took about 5 dailies or papers. We'll tell you to always go grab a copy of any day of them and read up and get more abreast with what seems to be happening. But what's happening now, let's see if we just talk some few more, or rather look at some major headlines on the dailies this morning. And one we are really concerned about is the issue that we talked about yesterday on Dialogue, and that is Simi Fubara coming back after the end of emergency rule that was pushed through by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If you could still remember, the emergency rule started on March the 18th and only ended the day before yesterday, after that midday broadcast from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But as much as many persons were waiting to see a glimpse of the man of the moment yesterday, the funny thing is that he never showed up. So the question remains, where is Rivers State's governor? I will call him our governor. Where is he? And what seems to be happening? But Mercy, I know you were not among those that waited yesterday, because we were right here doing trending and a whole lot of things getting prepared. Yeah. But was it more like a disappointment for many of them?
I was there waiting for him. You got that wrong. I was there waiting to see him. At least you just mentioned he was supposed to be the man of the moment. Yeah. So we're waiting to see him, suspense in the air and everything, but he didn't show up. And we are still concerned why he's not showing up. But Wike said he reached out to him and he said he would resume soon. Well, let's keep waiting.
But anyway, it looks as if Wike and Fubara has now been close friends because he's the one giving us update on where Fubara is. Governor Simi Fubara will just wish you nothing but the best. And let's resumption of real democratic process take its place right there. But anyway, we're still right here, still talking about some major day on the headlines on the dailies. And one I will drag Mercy into the discussion is the issue of Dangote screaming they want to make an increase pump price by 75 naira. So that means they want us to be paying 1,000 naira. And he's not the one saying it, but he's saying the marketer seems to be pushing for that to happen. Well,
you know, I still talked about this yesterday, and I said, everybody, they are only fighting for their pockets. And I said, I feel with everything that Dangote has really been doing, I feel he actually means well for Nigeria. But the people behind, the middlemen and all of that, the marketers, seem to be fighting this because I feel if the country is good, it's supposed to be good for everybody. I don't know why some persons just want it to be better for them and the others are suffering. So if Dangote is doing everything possible to ensure that the fuel price is stable to some extent, I don't see why people should be fighting it for increments of the fuel price. I don't know if the increments will just add to their own pockets, but everybody will just still suffer it at the end of the day. But this is Nigeria.
Well, anyway, I will just tell Dangote to go on. Mercy has your back. Don't shake it. She will really help you out. But anyway, that's the much you can say. I'll take right on the dailies.